And now we shift our focus to South America, where a number of countries have witnessed a significant shift on their political spectrum. We're talking about the emergence of leftist leaders in countries like Chile, Honduras, and Peru. In fact, in the final weeks of 2021, the people of Chile and Honduras voted decisively to replace their right-wing leaders. Now, this year, both Colombia and Brazil, well, they're expected to share the same fate as the aforementioned countries, as the upcoming elections pose a threat to the power dynamics in two of the most densely populated nations in South America. Now, experts say the poor economic climate, widespread inequality, and the mismanagement of the COVID-19 pandemic have all fueled those changes in power. Center-right and right-wing leaders have dominated the region in recent years, but now leftist candidates, they're gaining a lot of support, guys, with promises of better public services and a more equitable distribution of wealth. We've heard that here before, too. Well, to discuss this, we are joined by journalist and PhD researcher at the University of Nottingham, Oliver Dodd. Oliver, first of all, thank you so much for staying up with us. We know it's midnight there. We thank you. But it's very interesting. Kind of the elephant in the room here. It sounds like they're not happy with capitalism. Am I wrong?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I mean, depending on each of the countries in question, we really see different variables, different factors in place. In Chile, for example, it really is a monumental shift away, given that the current constitution of Chile is still the one based upon the 1980 constitution that was established under the US-backed military dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. So it really is a monumental shift to have President Boric, the incumbent president, elected. Now, Boric himself, he emerged out of the student movement in Chile. One of the interesting things will be whether he'll be able to manage the kind of economic power that is tied in Chile, but is nevertheless very linked with US multinational corporations, and how he will be able to maneuver around that. Honduras is also really interesting after a US-backed coup in 2009. Since then, we've really seen massive voter intimidation, even assassinations used against leftist forces in Honduras. Honduras is very similar to Colombia in this sense, in that we've seen massive political and police violence used against demonstrators and workers on a very casual basis. But as you say, if we're going to see a regional shift, we especially want to look to what's happening in Brazil and Colombia later this year, especially in Colombia, which has never really had a left-wing president, despite the kind of move towards Petro, who is leading by far in the polls at the moment. Of course, in 2018, he experienced an assassination attempt in Cucuta as he was campaigning. So it'll be interesting to see whether he'll actually be able to survive. And indeed, if he does take power, will he be able to maneuver around the political and economic elite forces that are very much linked with the United States, and especially US multinational corporations.
Now, it's interesting because you said in there a lot of young voters, and we're seeing a lot of that here in the United States, where we have these young voters getting behind people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the squad, as they call it, very much left progressive parties. When it comes to cases like Honduras, Chile, Peru, is this the rise of the young voters coming up, do you think? Or is it that they're just, everybody's sick and tired? What do you think it is?
I mean, it's the middle class, especially the lower middle class, the students, that have really been very much a lost generation. We're talking about highly unequal societies in Latin America, especially in Chile, Honduras, Colombia, and of course, Brazil. And they're very much the lost generation. And I think the COVID crisis, seeing governments that have really tried to privilege, the economic elite, especially in Brazil, that they've, as you say, they've been emerging and trying to get behind an alternative that really tries to redistribute wealth. And it'll be interesting because one of the worries, the concerns of the United States in this is the kind of resurgence of these left-wing movements, their ability perhaps to try to fashion a new opening, working with other countries, say Russia, China, that is obviously moving away from these political elites that are based in this country that have historically been tied to US economic interests. So there's a real possibility for opening.
Well, Oliver Dodd, thank you so much for staying up past your bedtime. You gave us a wealth of knowledge. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.